is the Women Painters West General Meeting on March 12th, 2026. And today we have Esther Jacks. She goes by Jacks demonstrating for us. But I'll let Annie Clavel give her a little introduction. Take it away, Annie.
So I have known Esther for a long time. It was in Fullerton, and she was doing a jury show. I remember it was in a small place, and then after she has done a lot with APERO collection, where she was gathering paintings from different people and put them in a online book. And then she is also a painter, a curator, a producer, and a poet.
Wow.
That's true. There's a lot. Thank you, Annie.
You're welcome. Okay, so if you are ready, we can start.
Sure.
With you. You can talk.
You should be able to share screen as well at this point. Let me know if that's not the case.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of being part of groups of artists. It's been a big part of my career has been communing with artists and getting to know them and working together. So thank you for thinking of me, Annie, and for having me, all of you guys. But I will. So I was going to speak to how I work, what I do, the relationships I've made over the years with collaborations and individual artists. And sort of my presentation title is Method and Meaning. And this has a lot of images, so I might scroll through some quickly, but feel free to ask any questions at any time and just stop me. But I will attempt to... I'm going to share the screen now. Let's see here. Oh, one moment. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. All right. Can you see?
Yes.
My screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So this I will make large, and here we go. Okay. So my name is Jacks. I go by Jacks. I go by Esther. There are a lot of artists who know me by different names over the years. You kind of continue on your journey, but so feel free to call me as you wish. But yeah, I have been a painter professionally for, oh gosh, I don't know. I knew I wanted to be a painter when I was about 17 years old, and I'm 40 now. If that gives you a little perspective. But I've just continued on this journey, and I've met some incredible people along the way. And so this will be a little bit of this and that. I'm also a poet, as Annie mentioned. And so I kind of collaborate within myself with my writing and my painting. So let's go to the first.
I have a question for you.
Oh, yes.
What does your work mean to you?
Well, that is the question of the ages, really, because primarily I never knew this in the beginning, kind of the early days when I became a painter, but I'm realizing now that more than ever, my work is very much connective for me, to understand my fellow man, to sort of figure out and explore where the empathy comes from, where the kindness comes from. And my work encompasses all subject matter. So life is what inspires me, from the volcanoes to, which is just sort of the impetus, the origins of life, to a moment on a rooftop with friends and like-minded individuals, and capturing kind of those things and those sort of cataloging these aspects of time in my work is very important to me. So I find that to be kind of a very interesting part of my work, is that it is very expansive. It's not subject matter is broad, abstractive work. I did this piece behind me, or representational, whatever it is, I want to create it. And so I just just get in there. And I created, let's go to the next slide here, compassion. So this is an abstractive piece. My past, and most artists, we have long storied histories of different things we deal with personally, things that are public. The title of this work is I Was in a Cult and I Love Volcanoes. So I dealt with some repressive sort of ideologies in my youth that I had to contend with. And part of being an artist for me is sort of dissecting that in the work that I do today. Abstraction. I love it so much. And I've been able to do really large work in abstraction. And so this sort of dialogue that crashing it onto the canvas is probably one of my favorite things to do. In my small work, I tried to do that as well. But I feel that it sort of is a very compassionate act when you understand where the work comes from, when you sort of look into the life of the artist, which, there's so many artists that we love, historically, personally, that we know. And I find it to be an incredible thing to be able to try and understand their struggles and what they have gone through in their life. Because then I feel understood as a human, on this kind of planet. But the brevity of life, memento mori, that is always at the forefront of my creation, is that life is short. There are beautiful, beautiful moments that can be, absorbed and translated by the artist, by me, this artist, for in some way that maybe can reach out to another individual and gift them some sort of repose in the chaos that exists in the world. And that's sort of an ongoing thing. We humans, we create these archaic sort of ideas that can create, displacement for a lot of people and suffering. And I find that I hold kind of personally. I find it to be sort of a responsibility of mine to showcase that you don't know what someone else is going through, and let's share in the beauty that is the earth together. So the natural world is a huge influence to me. And this is Crystal Cove. I've painted Crystal Cove numerous times. I absolutely love Crystal Cove and in Laguna Beach. And then this muse is a friend of mine who is a muse of mine for many years. Her name is Megan, and she put on a mask and we did this photo shoot. And I sort of thought the whole series spoke to the intimacy of being sort of within oneself and being able to create. And that is still a very valid, beautiful, real human experience, even if it's not plastered on the internet like everything is nowadays. The mundane. So I curated a show years ago when you mentioned, Annie, at the Colony, group of like-minded artists doing different things, photographers, woodworkers, poets. There, I curated a small show with a few dear friends of mine, Oscar Arroyo, Gabriel Palma, John Solemn, these wonderful artists. And because I noticed in their work, they were creating these just dynamic, punchy pieces that were still lifes or little.
Melanie Roshko, 818-378-3830. I have an appointment with Dr. Purcell on Monday.
Oh, I think one of the audio.
If you're not speaking, can you mute, please?
Melanie,
Melanie, we can hear you.
oh, sorry.
It's okay. I need to make an appointment after this, actually.
I'm so sorry. I thought I turned.
But yeah, these moments we go through in our daily life, we have to take medicine, we have to walk outside, we have to go shopping, we sit in these places. It is exhausting as an artist to consider the mundane constantly and then to think from that, oh, well, there's a million things I want to do. So it's a very good problem to have. You are never uninspired, but it is exhausting. And so, Annie, actually, the piece on the left, and everyone here, Moment in Shadow, is a piece I painted a little cottage my uncle has in Brittany, France. And I was just sitting there, and it just looked so beautiful. The flowers that were picked from the garden, the bottle reflecting the light, sort of color of yellow and blue. So that was maybe mundane to someone else, but to me, in my eye, I thought, well, there's beauty there, there's memory, there's remembrance, and so I wanted to catalog that. And After the Rain is another piece that I did really early on, and I thought to myself, well, no one's going to care about this. I've always dismissed, if anyone else will actually worry about it, because I am probably my worst critic. And I'm like, if I like it, then I'm like, oh, maybe something is happening here, or nothing, who knows. But this piece was just looking above the rooftops, and seeing the truth of the sky, and its sort of movement there. The mundane, absolutely inspiring to me as well. Another piece, a dear friend of mine, a painting I did of her, portrait of her opening the door, a refrigerator door, just a very seemingly uninteresting action that we do, maybe I do it too many times in the day, but the light, the dark, those contrasts are also very fascinating to me as well. I'll continue on here. Yeah. So, I focus at different times on different types of light. I love how light kind of seeps through water and translucency. I find it to be it's very kind of fun to work with, but it's also very challenging when I want a certain effect. And I'm working with the color, and I'm working with the contrast, and I don't necessarily want it to be too flat. So there's, a myriad of things as artists we work with, texture and line and all the things that make art I'm a very physical painter. So I try to kind of imbue that into my work as well. And even if it's very, very chiaroscuro, very black and white, I still try to put a little bit of the soft values and kind of tones in there. So, yeah, inspiration. Everything from the woodcock, from a bird, and then I think I got that. I think I was inspired from that. I enjoy watching a lot of like black and white videos of animals or sort of things that are passing through a screen, and then I'll take a still and then I'll work from that sometimes. So there's a little woodcock there on the left, which is more tonal, and then on the right is my niece as a sleeping baby with the camera on her. And you never know what the strangeness is going to like bring about, what kind of situation might inspire you. So I always try to keep an open mind. And I'm always thinking about something I'm gonna work on. Whether I have projects right in the future, and then I have maybe a series I'm working on, but then I always take pieces and I catalog them. I have a myriad of folders on my very messy desktop that I can go into if I ever need something and feel I need to be inspired by an older idea I had. Yeah. So.
Okay, and then, oh yes, now you are going to speak about poetry. When did you start poetry, and does poetry and visual art overlap for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I started writing when I was in my teens, probably 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that poetry, yeah, it was it was very early. It was a little angsty, and it was very burgeoning of the emotive aspects of growing up. And I was not encouraged to do that. In fact, I was discouraged, and so I had to do a lot of my writing kind of in secret. I also did that with my painting early on. But I took it, and I've always found it kind of aligns with my painting. I'll often create a work, and then I'll look in my poetry books, and I'll look for a poem that really suits that piece. Sometimes I don't find it, sometimes I do, but I guess I speak in a similar voice with my painting and poetry. It's an interesting idea. So this is a painting, called The Origins of Something. And then there's a poem there that sort of mirrors that painting in some ways. And so, yeah, there was always a story formed by gently undulating hills and lingering brush, the kind that makes you wonder who walked there before. An antediluvian land that took its time to tell a secret, full of the old smells of burnt coffee, of rain-soaked dust. There's always a story, and it was always of us. So those very kind of intimate but grand ideas as it pertains to nature and the individual human being, I love connecting those kind of narratives. I find it very, very interesting and broad. And very, then there's another one, the small things. You know, from a very simple subject can come these very tender kind of moments that I like to imbue within my work as well. This is a little 8x10 to my 8 piece of cacti. Titled The Small Things. Now it is time to reflect on the small things, like the things that come from us, the things that come from without, that come from the ground. So much like poetry and painting, you know, there's much unsaid in the painting, right? And so the viewer, for me, I like to leave a little bit of the abstractive in terms of ideas. I don't want to punch a full idea into a painting typically, because I really enjoy going into museums and wondering a little bit about the work. You know, I don't have to know all the details. That's always kind of been a fascinating thing for me. I've done a lot of shows, curated different exhibitions with poetry involved. This is one called Love Notes and Poems, very, very direct and intermingled with art. And I like the idea of walking into a gallery or walking into a museum and being able to read poetry alongside art and seeing that visual. That's a kind of a dynamic thing, you know. And then people tend to have more questions as well about the work when there's poetry aligned with it. This was another poetry moment. At one point, we were writing poems that were like that turned into sort of theater, and none of us wanted our faces shown. So we did this exhibition, and the poets were behind the pink curtain. It's just kind of, if you ever don't like showing your face, which I really don't, I like my privacy very much, but that's one way to do it. Wear a mask, you know. The artists, we like to go to the caves sometimes, but the voice is important. Here's another great exhibition, Time, Love, and Gravity, which is a show I curated quite a few times with some wonderful artists, co-curation. And then A Poem is Near was another one. So poetry has threaded itself throughout my work for many years. And I don't see that ending, but I do work more on painting than I do specifically on poetry. The poetry kind of comes. I kind of allow that more or less to flow. There's some of the books that I've kind of put together: Convergence, The Edge, No Service, A Story, Beneath the Boughs. A lot of them. So when I hit No Service, that was when, I started thinking about how technology really informs a lot of writing and a lot of painting and a lot of the arts. It goes without saying, of course, in this era, but now this next book I have in mind is it's called Verify You Are Human. And it struck me that a lot of the times when I'd be online, I would get this little pop-up that was like, go verify you're a human, you know? And with the advent of AI and with all of these technologies coming out, there is utility there, you know, it can be used as a tool in different ways. However, the work that speaks to me and the art that I find to be very much thinking about the future of human beings is work that is created by a human being that has this life experience behind them, that is not something that one can really replicate in technology. Unless something becomes sentient, then we must consider and think about things differently. But I think about this very, very often because it's in the dialogue right now of many artists, and you'll see that online as well. So this is one of the poems in my soon-to-be a small book, Verify You're a Human. And it's the trees are squeaking. I hear them by the river, swaying, speaking to the stones, to the spores, to the rope in the mud. verify you are human, verify you are. But I could not, for I was sleeping like a cluster of young ferns hallucinating the Jurassic, the house. I did not question ens realissimum, oh, to be an ovule, preconceived, dipped in verity. So it's the idea that where we are and who we are is very connected to the nature and our origins. There's the guidance, the rope in the mug. Where are we going? Where is it going? I don't know. I live in the world, and these are things that we have to contend with. With technology being a huge part of expression now as well. I would say it's kind of intermingling. So for me, the individual artist, I have to kind of weave my way around that. And I find that I actually I got rid of my cell phone for about, it was like 6 months at one point, but my family, they needed to contact me, and so I had to get my cell phone again. But I cannot tell you the freedom that I felt when I was non-contactable is kind of fantastic. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to that. Yeah.
Okay, and then now you have done a lot of plein air paintings, abstract too, but can you speak about your plein air? Why are you going outside?
Why am I going outside? That's a great question. No, yeah, I started painting plein air. I don't really know what the inception of it was, to be completely honest. I try to think about who. Well, there are a few artists, and I'll speak to one of them. John Constable was a huge inspiration. Of course, a lot of the French painters, and there are also a lot of Latin American painters. But I first started doing anything in plein air when I was in Laguna. And I literally got a map, and I mapped out all of the coves, and you could see there's all these darling little coves that are in there. And I would leave my home, and I would go early in the morning or just at dusk. I made sure I would get there right at dusk or early in the morning. And I would drive to a cove, and I would have like several pages I'd cut out. I wasn't using really hard board at that time, but and I would just sit and I would paint an impression of a place. I painted really quickly, 4 to 5 pieces. They weren't really cohesive in terms of the composition and all that, but they were sort of catalogs of the light changing, the land changing based on the recede and the recession of the water and all that. So that was a huge teacher for me. Above all, I would say if you're gonna get into plein air painting, let the land teach you. And then of course there are some incredible plein air artists I've had the great privilege of knowing and being close to their work over the years. But this was from a wild trip. My husband and I took up the coast, Oregon, from California, and it was so windy, and the rain was coming down on occasion, and it was just like, it sort of gives me this verve to continue whenever I think about plein air painting. I think about getting a jacket and going outside in the rain in any weather, because it forces you to think about what you're doing and work very quickly. And I always enjoy that. There's more Crystal Cove. The seascape and the land there is very dynamic, ever changing. So you get these layers with the maritime layer coming in. You get these extremely clear, crisp days. You get days that are overcast, so your color's more muted. So it's a forever learning experience. I would say that you could sit one spot on the beach and paint for the rest of your life, and you would never have a moment of something that's uninteresting. I remember I sat once at the beach and I was painting, and this massive pelican came. It was a brown pelican. It came and sat next to me, like 3 feet away from me. And I would sit on the beach. Occasionally I stand and I would bring my palette, my easel. But I was sitting on the beach and I didn't realize it, but this crowd had gathered kind of behind because they were just wandering around. And people they were curious, what are you doing? And this bird was sitting next to me, and then I finished. And I got up, and then the bird got up and flew away. And then I turned around and I looked at everyone. They were just like, "Oh, wow, are you friends with that bird?" And I was like, "Nope, we're just strangers. We just met on the beach." You never know what's going to happen, when you're out there. I've also enjoyed painting the urbanscape. Here's a photo a friend of mine took when I was on a rooftop years ago, painting a construction site, actually, that you can kind of see when it was just starting, when it was just starting to be built. But yeah, the nocturne, also a huge inspiration. The night, I love that light and the dark. Again, the contrast, it always inspires me to think about the midtones and think about what it means to kind of feel something, even if the eye doesn't see it. The mystery and that sort of language within painting has always been very, very interesting to me, and I really do appreciate as well the very light nocturnes that are less black heavy. So I kind of vacillate at different times in my work between high key, kind of low key type painting. There's Dana Point. One of the more difficult subject matters with plein air painting is structure, because I like to keep my work loose, even though this feels sort of like a tight image to me. But so learning how to look at everything has just been something that that's taught me a lot, and I've taken that into the studio and work I do at home. And the outdoors will just humble you, every single time. You think, oh, I'm doing something. And then you're like, what am I doing? But you have to be there and experience it and try it. So I am ever grateful to the natural world, and also to friends who I've gone and been able to paint with as well. It's always a great boon to your confidence. So I lived in Ladera Ranch for many years with my husband. And can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. So I had the great opportunity, I will say, to paint the same hillscape numerous times. And that experience is probably, I don't know, when it comes to learning something or being taught something, that was an incredible, incredible thing to be able to do. And, specifically to be able to study a scape and see how it's ever changing, how the light changes and all that. There's something that it's like a forced focus. And also it forces you to experiment as well. So that I've always been grateful to have any kind of experience like that, where I can paint something repetitively. That's been a very good method for me to do. And together, it's always wonderful when you can paint with other artists. I never thought I would be interested in that, but when it comes to plein air painting, you're outside, you can commune together, you can bring a little snack, you can be out in the environment and remember that time together. I think about that when I think about a lot of artists who have been plein air artists that we know of. And a lot of their life experience is with other human beings, other people, and then focusing on the scape and the natural world there. And you do imbue a little bit of that in there, and then the sand gets in there and some bugs, and it's great. You take that home with you, and it's always a memory that you remember. I'm going to run through method pretty quickly, but my work kind of, it varies. If I'm working on really large work, I like to start with carbon. I literally will burn some incense or some plants and leaves, and then I'll start that as this kind of the strata at the very bottom, and then I put texture, and then it grows and grows from there. So it's always an act that I'm doing after I try to clear my brain. I try to actually work with very little happening in my head. I don't know how successful I am, but think about the work I do that I'm going to be doing prior to. Oh man, I do all kinds of thinking and I basically create the piece in my head, and then I get to the canvas, and then I try to forget everything that I just told myself, and then I get in there, and yeah, that's great. Experimenting, huge part of that. This piece has a little obsidian in it, so stone. I want to continue on this vein in a large way. But I never would have thought about that unless I thought about my love for rocks and clay and these different materials. I wouldn't have thought to put that in a piece until I started thinking about that, sort of how it works together. Does anyone have any questions at the moment?
Are you
Gustav,
working in acrylic or are you working in oil?
Both. I work in mixed media. Usually my more impressionistic representational work like this will be oil. And then my abstractive work, I tend to work in a variety of medium, oil and acrylic, gouache. Sometimes I love plein air gouache work is really cool to do. I'll even, if I needed texture at one point and I was like, oh, what do I have? So I went into my kitchen and I grabbed like some, I don't know what it's going to do to the painting, but I threw some I threw some herbs into the gesso and I threw it on there and it gave like a really good texture because it was like, you know, and sometimes you use what you got as the artist. You just got to get into your pantry. You know, you'd be surprised what can come of it.
Cool. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this would be more representational work. So I sketch it out, you know, try to compose it, and then I come in with the color and my lights and my darks and start kind of creating it all as a whole together. Sort of a story, you know. I don't intend to create stories initially in my work, but I think about the overall effect of the ending. So perhaps that's therein is where I touch it a little bit with the storytelling, but yeah, and variation. So like I was mentioning in the texture, you know, even a representational piece, I like to allow for kind of texture to come through. So I have a brush here actually. Part of this for me as an entire tool is this brush part, and then the other half is literally this back end, and the whole other half I use it like a palette knife and I scratch and I scrape, and you know it's a great tool. So which is dangerous. Sometimes you get other tools and you know that's an eating implement, so you don't necessarily want to use that with the oil on it. But that is so you'll notice a bit of scratching and kind of line delineation. In a way, I do use it for that as well within these pieces, and I like the effect. I feel like it gives it a little more depth and tack to it. Yeah.
I just want to ask you something. I can see when you are doing plein air or on those one that you are inspired by Gustave Courbet.
Yes.
But you have other kinds of inspiration. Can you tell us about this?
Of course, yeah. So when I was talking about plein air painting, John Constable is an English
Yes,
artist.
sure.
You know,
Yes.
this piece here on the left, I think that piece is in the Huntington Library and Gardens. And it's a small painting. It's kind of on the second floor where it's above where all the writings of Shakespeare are, kind of in that area. Anyway, if it goes missing, I may have borrowed it. I'm just kidding. But it's such a great piece and no one really goes up and sees it. But it's so raw and evocative of the landscape. And so his work, he's known for the Salisbury Cathedral that is a little tighter and a little more pastoral. But I really love his plein air work that just shows a storm and shows this real life happening. You know, yeah.
Mine is not a question, but I just wanted to give a comment. Your poetry is just as beautiful as your paintings.
Oh.
And I love the fact that you do abstraction, you do representational or impressionistic painting, and they all come together so well. You also use different kinds of mediums. So you're so versatile. I mean, I'm so fascinated with that.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Zani. What kind of work do you do?
I do watercolor and acrylic.
Wow.
And
okay.
mixed media as well.
Yeah.
But impressionistic mostly.
Oh, wonderful. You know, early on, I remember being told by multiple people, many people, I don't know why, but I would hear it constantly. You should stick with one subject matter. You should stick with like one medium because then that'll be like the thing and it'll be this thing. And first of all, I'm sort of a rebellious person, so I really don't like what to do. So I was just like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it, you know. But you know, as a creator, I recently consider myself an artist, you know, but as someone who likes to take from the environment and the world around me at large, I think, you know, it would be extraordinarily limiting to put myself in one box, it's one thing or another. And I feel the same way for all artists, because most artists I know are musicians as well, and are poets, and are painters, or work with wood, or create things from shells. It's very, yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
You're welcome.
But yeah, so John Constable, huge, very inspiring to me, because he invented this word called skying. I remember, and he would focus on the clouds, and he did so many studies of these clouds. And so I thought, you know what, let me try and do that. So I was stuck in the clouds with my head in the clouds for a while, for a bit of time. And it was fantastic. I did that in California, off the hill and Ladera Ranch, that I looked into. It actually, my apartment at the time looked into like a nature preserve. And so I feel like that was like an incredible time to paint. So I would paint the same perspective constantly. And then, of course, in California, we didn't get too many clouds all the time. So when the clouds would come, that's when you go, it's just when it's there, you go and do it. But yeah, so my version of skying, as Constable did, was studying the clouds and getting into it. And I also did that in Brittany when I would go to France. I did that a bit. And whenever you're in another environment, in a different zone, there's the like atmospheric zones, 4, 5, 6, and all that. You see the air different. You see the atmosphere is more crystalline, or there's like less layers, and it's a very fascinating thing to me, because you learn about what the other artists were looking at historically, based on where they were located. It's very interesting history-wise. To delve into that. But yeah, Courbet, I love his caves. I really love caves. I love all things of the earth. Volcanoes and caves and volcanoes kind of go hand in hand. So that's the grotto, that's a Courbet piece. But I really enjoy the beauty of the paint itself. So sort of respecting that it is this material that does kind of what it wants to do. And it's funny, because I was speaking to my husband the other day. He's a painter in his own right, but he worked with airbrush and different things. And I really was attracted to the oil. I started in acrylic, and then I got into oil. And oil, it's like a mess. You gotta like dig into it, and then there's something beautiful maybe at the end. But it's like super. It kind of does what it wants to do. So I'm finding myself stepping back from it a little bit, and letting it kind of do more than having less of a physical control aspect to it. But this piece on the left, Dr. Adel, he was a Latin American artist. His name is Murillo, I believe. But he studied volcanoes, and he painted Paracutin, which is that volcano that came out of a cornfield. And there's some volcanoes that I've done, but my great uncle, whose name was Gonzalo Elosegui, he was a painter, and he studied under Roberto Montenegro, who was a contemporary of Diego Rivera. And so I met him kind of later in his life, and I didn't really know there were artists in my family. Basically, my mother. So, and my mother was born in Mexico, in Durango, Mexico, and my father was born in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, France. And so I'm a mix of many things. And when I discovered that about my great uncle, I was like, oh, how fascinating. And so he did gift me his knowledge of the early Latin American artists. A lot of those guys, it was time of revolution, and they were doing this incredible stuff. They were doing the lino cut, they were carving into wood, they were printing, they had this really graphic intensity to their work. And I think that really impacted me early on, when I was first beginning to paint. So there's Etna, there's another Kilauea piece. I have an app on my phone. It's a volcano app. And another thing, if you're feeling uninspired, get an app that tells you when the volcanoes are erupting. You will always be interested. You'll always have something to keep your attention, because the earth is a moving, wild place. And I want to catalog it if I can. There's the summit, that's another Kilauea piece. Joshua Tree, the Mojave. I've had the great pleasure of roaming around many a time and taking photographs. And I found at one point some pictographs with a friend of mine. We had gone on a hike, and we came around this corner, and there was this rock slab kind of facing up, and we were like, "Oh my God, there's this pictographs in there from ancient Native people, you know?" And so we got up close. We didn't touch anything. You want to preserve as much as you can in those instances, but it impacted me so much. I, of course, had to paint what I remembered. So those impressions of past people creating made a big impression on me. And my mother, my abuelita, her mother, her people were the Tarahumara or Raramuri people who lived in Sierra Madre Occidental, all along the Mexico coast in the mountains. And so when it comes to looking at the land and thinking about our history as human beings, that has kind of really impressed on me to think about my forefathers and family on both sides of my family. So it's been a very cool thing to explore. So yeah, more caves. As Corvée loves, I love the caves. The sea cave, right, is a very a very welcoming kind of type of cave. Both of these actually are. The one on the right, the Brittany Cave, is from a trip I took there. And I asked my uncle about it, and he said the ancient Breton people used to go to the caves, and they used to give gifts, and they used to put money in the caves, and they worship sort of the old gods at a lot of these caves that are along the coast. So that was another thing. I was like, oh, great, I can go along the coast and I can catalog these caves. Maybe that's a trend, go along the coast and catalog the land. But yeah, that huge impression on me, Courbet and those artists as well. But yeah.
That's new. I have never seen this one. So what are you working on right now?
Well, it's very interesting because I like to focus on different things at different times. Yesterday, I painted a shark, and the day before that, some figures, you know, having a sort of frivolity in their in their moment. So my focus, it does very much lately. It sort of has been clinging to what's happening societally with young people, with people struggling to find their place in the world, and individuals thinking about identity and the fear of war. And, you know, there are a great many things that have my attention that I think about before I'm creating. And within that is the natural world, and are these beautiful places that I've been gifted to be around in my life. And so I don't want to ignore that and the importance of peace. As an artist, being able to create, I have to consider kind of the balance of that, because I don't want to tend to the you know, extreme side of human suffering and ignore, you know, the truth that the earth is, you know, which is there's a lot of balance. There's chaos and there's the archaic there, but you know, how do I express that in my work? So this is a piece of Newport Beach. It was the back of a boat, and I loved the contrast, and I thought it's beautiful. You're looking at the history of human living their lives there, and then I'm here. So there's the distance is kind of an interesting thing to play with, and I did that with a few pieces after that. And then you know, more societal qualms people have and what we're dealing with in the world. And then a piece like on the dock where there were these seals, and they were barking. It was on that same trip, that same plein air trip to Oregon. But you know, the light and the dark, and that the ability to kind of see in between is where I like to play a lot of times. These are two dear friends of mine, Brandon and Michael Makowski, both incredible artists and inspirations to me personally. And then, yeah, my family, on the left would be my a great grandfather, I think, on my mother's side. And then on the right was from a trip I took to France. And, the merging of culture and human beings is something that I try to understand within myself, but I also really love to see in the work of artists that I know and admire. Yeah, and my husband and I lived in in California, and we recently moved to Washington State, which is very wet and very lush green, and it's so verdant, and it's just this incredible place. So I have found my work changing because of that. The environment will force you to think about what you want to say, how you're going to say it, what does it mean, in the scope and scale of composition and structure and all that. And it's been good. It's very good, I think, to move outside of the same. It's been difficult because, of course, they have all the beautiful artists in Southern California. But part of that beauty of change is that, it makes you consider reconnection and making the effort and the movement to be close to each other as human beings. And so, again, with the water, the abstractive sort of aspect of it, I find in a lot of my sort of more abstractive expressionistic work, I love working with pastel. It's great. It's kind of crumbly and it makes a little bit of a mess, but you create sort of an illustrative mark of yourself whilst you're working. And then, I don't want to blend it. I just want to keep it. I find that to be kind of a cool tool, pastel these days. Oh yeah. And then, so I'm focused as well on a space. I love all things celestial. I cannot get over the heavens and the rocks floating around out there. I love stones. I love rocks. I love all the movement that happens and the unknown. And I never thought this would happen in my entire life, but I was a member of the California Art Club a few years back, and in 2021, they had an exhibition that was, what was it called? Was it called an artistic mission, mission to Mars? Artistic mission, but I submitted a painting of Mars actually, and it got into the show. And then years later, in 2024, I've got a message from a physicist, Dr. Peralta, and he said he has his work is titled The Lunar Codex, and he collects art from artists who are doing different shows and doing work that he's interested in. And that entire show from the California Art Club, he curated into the Lunar Codex mission that went to the moon in 2024. And I never would have thought in a million years that would have happened. An engraved little engraving of my painting on a little nanofish disc stuck onto a rocket and launched to the moon. That experience really taught me that no matter what anyone says, always create what you are interested in, what you're passionate about, because and it might be the strangest thing and nobody might latch onto it like you do, but you never know where that's going to take you. And, I'm extraordinarily grateful for that, for this opportunity and to be in a group of such artists, right? They floated off to the moon, Yeah. So this is the...
What made you move from California, though?
A lot of factors, primarily economic for sure. But also the water is sort of changing and there's, a lot of, there are a lot of things that sort of influenced the move, I guess, but mostly economic, I would say for sure. And then on top of that is there's the change of water. There's also some great things when it comes to retirement up here. There's the state income tax. Oh, we first moved on the border of Oregon and Washington. So it's kind of cool. You could go into Oregon and there's no sales tax. So, as you know, mundane as that might sound, that was a huge driver. But also, we wanted kind of a new landscape too. I've lived in California my whole life, and I've roamed the coast and the shores, and I love it, and it will always be very near and dear to me. If you read any of my poems, I talk a lot about the oak trees and the hills of California. But so it's going to be a place where I have had a lot of dreams. But in Washington, I'm discovering these new patterns, within myself, and I feel like, to speak to this slide, the collaboration is not going to end because I've left California. I was just back in California, and I was able to, commune back with so many incredible artists that I've known. And that is, it's a powerful thing. I mean, really, California and Washington are not that far. We're on the same West Coast. But yeah, there are a lot of things to consider, because most of my work in the galleries and communities I've been part of have been based in California. And I'm excited to see what happens in the state of Washington, and to see what artists I'll meet and be able to commune with as well. And there's also already some great galleries I've been in contact with in Oregon as well. So, change is never comfortable, and I found it to be a little
Change
bit
can be good. Yeah.
Can be good. That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm
Thank you.
grateful for that. But yeah, this is the collaboration, huge aspect of my work has been working with other artists, and not even working with other artists. I say it's working, but it's really just being and breathing around other artists and seeing how they create. Because I always want my perspective challenged. If I get too sedate and comfortable in a place, then there's the death for me. Then I what am I doing? I really want to be pushed and made a little uncomfortable. Even speaking with you all today is not my cup of tea. My forte is to go into a little cave on a Hebridean island and paint in there. But I'm so grateful and happy to be around other artists, but yeah, it's not in my nature to be so to speak about my work very much. But yeah, these are kind of different shows that I've curated. Je suis ciel et fleurs is very we are sky and flowers. Annie can translate that one. She knows.
You can translate it. Je suis ciel et fleurs.
That was way better. Yeah. Thank you. And there's another show. So I was a member of a group called the Mugusky Arts Colony in Fullerton. And before then, I had kind of gone up the coast, Long Beach. I was part of a group there. Santa Ana, I was part of a group there. And it was more heavily politically driven, which was good in my youth to understand what those dynamics were. And then moved into the Fullerton Arena, which was this incredible colony that made a huge impact on my life. And there's so many artists there that I know today. And one evening we went to Laguna Beach, and we created an entire series of art and photography and sculpture from one night. We called the Night of the Sacred Dew, as Milton would say. And, experiences like that, even whilst I was in them, I thought to my friend who's Brandon Munoz of Monkwood. He's an incredible artist who does incredible woodworking. But I looked at him once when we were in a moment of just communion, and I was like, are we going to look back on this and be like, wow, what are we doing here? He's like, yeah. Sometimes you want to just be in the moment and stay in the moment. But when you recognize it, that's a precious thing. The sacred sky. So I feel very lucky that I was able to begin curating exhibitions with my friends and with artists that I knew before burgeoning out into APERO, which was more public juried exhibitions and that kind of thing. Another exhibition, 17 minutes in between dreams. So it was basically 17 minutes from my house is where the colony was. So in between the dreams, is from where the life comes and the love comes from so many artists that I've known. Intimate art, small or large, the work. To me, I love all of it. And which can be problematic because, it's why it's good to be part of a group of artists because you can share work, you can trade it. It's just at least over space on the walls. Yeah, so that's how APERO kind of happened, which is it started out as a small gallery in Fullerton after I had done these group communal shows. And Annie was very kind to have her work be part of it. And then when that ended, because I found I needed to kind of focus on my work a bit more, then a catalog was established. And so that catalog was printed, digital. It's incredible how many artists I was able to, my husband designed it as well, how many artists we were able to meet and commune with and actually see their work. I don't know how it even happened, but I still know many of these artists internationally, and I can actually talk to them and be together at the same time on planet Earth and discuss their work and discuss what that means in the psyche of the artist, like what is happening, in the world. That is something that, invaluable. I'm glad I was able to share that to many others as well. Through the lens of the catalog, and it worked very well as well during COVID because everyone came out of the galleries and people were wondering what to do, and so the catalog did share that as well. And now what my husband and I have done to a degree is reach out to certain artists and try to catalog their story and their vision of their work in video and film. Because the artist is the only one really who can speak to their work truly in a way that you've never heard before. A lot of artists don't like to do that, but if there's just one camera, maybe there can be a video there that catalogs it. So that's now what APERO has kind of turned into. So this is a video, but I don't know, it might be a bit long, but I'll just play a couple seconds of it. It's a short video that was cataloged of a Time, Love, and Gravity exhibition at the Sastre.
What I'm saying is that love equals time, either divided by gravity or plus gravity, or what kind of a number do you want to throw at us?
I'm going with divided by gravity.
Okay,
I
gravity.
think it's divided by gravity, definitely.
Can you guys hear me if I speak a little bit or no?
Correct.
Yes.
So this was a group show that was curated. And we've actually done this show 3 times. The one after this was a show that I co-curated in Newport Beach. Momo is this wonderful curator as well. And there's just a variety of subject matter, and it was time, love, and gravity is sort of the theme that we wanted to continue on to showcase our love for each other as artists, part of that group and of the colony. And I think it's a kind of a beautiful thing when you can continue the strain of collaboration into a gallery setting, into an exhibition. It's a really cool thing, and it'll change over time too. So, it's time. So. Yeah. That's the wonderful work of Michael Fleckner. He's this incredible neon artist. His work is on the United States Postal Stamp. There's the ancient table Brendan created. And John Solom's wonderful.
How on earth did you get that table down the stairs?
Within this exhibition, we brought poetry into it as well. But let me see if I can go into
What you're saying is
to the next. So another huge aspect of my work that has just been ever helpful, and nothing is perfect, in the art world. Everyone thinks, well, the artists, they all get along and we're all friends and that's all fine. But, there's differences with individuals, but I think it's always been very helpful for me to be part of a group, because then I can contribute to that group and I can also learn, as an individual artist. My work is very solitary, and I create within myself, and then I create by myself, but the world is not that way. And so I've been grateful to be part of Oka in Santa Ana, and Quorum Gallery in Laguna Beach, and Gosky Arts Colony in Fullerton, and Sega Fine Art in Monrovia when they were open. And that's been a kind of incredible thing to do. I would encourage, and your group I'm now very interested in. So it's, the communion, the connection, it can never be discounted as being very important to your work as an artist, I think. The same thing would go for me when it comes to auctions and donating my work. I try to donate at least one piece every single year to a cause that I'm passionate about, whether it's Arts in the City or this foundation, All the Arts for All the Kids. That was a foundation I donated to frequently in Fullerton, and that money would go into the schools to teach children about art. And that led me to create sculpture, which I didn't think I would be doing. So a lot of times you have to curate your work to something that perhaps the fundraiser requires, and that's good. I think it sort of pushes that change in the work. It makes you think outside of different things. So for me, that I've been grateful for that. Don't know what this is. Oh, this is another exhibition that I was very grateful to co-curate with my friend Jim Ellsbury, who I met actually in Laguna. And the Huntington Beach Art Center's been there a long time, and it was really cool to curate something that was such a large space. The video my husband together.
Let's pull it.
So yeah, these experiences have kind of contributed to my desire to continue working with artists, because I'm just fascinated by how artists think so differently from each other, but we use similar mediums. It's art is a language that there's the millions of these languages, from every single individual. And so, yes, I would like to learn all of them, but it sounds a little crazy. But I don't know, every single day, I look at the work of many, many artists. And you can kind of do that if you're on any of these social media platforms, really, because the artists post their work and you can see kind of what they're doing. But after the Huntington Beach Art Center show, I admired for many years the work of Jason Situ, who is this incredible plein air painter. His brother is as well. They're just a family of dynamic human beings. But he was so gracious to allow myself and my husband to film him and capture his thoughts and his method and his affect on film, literally talking about his work and his life. And those things are really important. Cataloging the artist for me has been something that I've been really passionate about, and I love talking to artists, hearing what they're doing, what they're creating.
We've been aware of that information.
Which I forgot, and I wanted to ask, how are we doing on time, by the way?
And the State Operations Center.
Might be good to start thinking about wrapping up a little bit.
Sounds good. Okay.
We're aware of that, which has been poured.
So I have a, oops, here we go.
We're aware of that information.
Does it sound coming from my end?
In real time.
I'm not sure. Does anybody, everybody please mute except for Esther?
I think it's coming from Catherine.
So when it came to focus, which was the kind of what I'm focusing on and what I was focusing on, maybe I'll ask this at the end, but my latest series I've been focusing on is called Casual Chaos, and it sort of touches on the chaos in the world at this time, and how young people are trying to find their sort of way through that, and their identity, and what that means for future generations. Like endless remediation. There's a lot of lead in the soil in Santa Ana. There's a lot of things that we've done to the earth that we could be rectifying. We could be thinking about, not just for ourselves, but for the future. So I do implement, and I do put that in a lot of my work. The fringe of kind of danger is there. The idea that chaos could be around the corner, but we don't know. But then there's also the beauty there of, being able to dance in the street at night, So there's that sort of idea of merging also the past, present, and the future. So I think about my youth, and maybe how I wish I could have had a little bit more been allowed more expression and freedom in certain ways, and how maybe I'm forging my ways now into my work in that way, and I'm able to express it, and thinking about the future as well, for those who come after us. And I might put a little bit of the celestial in there, like in the dying waves, there's a comet coming, maybe the comet's gonna decimate a little island, or maybe it won't, and it'll just be a godlike omen, for us. All of these things that happen around me, they do influence my work to a degree. And so that's kind of one series I'm working on right now. It's called Casual Chaos. And this is a piece of it's my cousin's wife, actually, and her daughter. And I just thought it was such a funny, sort of chaotic moment, a little bit, with the ruckus laughing, and the passage of time, and the brevity of life. That's sort of a theme that I wanted to portray in this piece, which is probably one of my largest portrait style pieces, 36 by 36. And this is where I now live. I live in this place called Washington, and the atmosphere and the essence of it is something that is really very peaceful, and I'm really grateful for that. And I don't know where I'll end up in this world, but there are a great many things to consider and to placate when it comes to the natural world in my work. And I would like to close by asking all of you, any artists, what is your focus today? What are you focusing on in your work? If you have a short sentence that can kind of state that, what would you like to say?
My latest work is focused on ways to access comfort and joy.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Oil paintings, large.
Okay.
Not as large as yours.
Wow. Ways to access that. Wow. Beautiful.
In landscapes, I find the energy of spiritual access, of excitement, of confusion, all kinds of possibilities open up when you ask that question.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have anything they want to answer that one? I'm actually focusing on literary stuff right now, so I'm not the right person to answer that question. I guess everybody's shy or not paying attention anymore. Too shy to talk.
Yeah, the world and the focus, whether it's on the beauty and the joy of it, or the understanding of what those who are struggling are going through. That is sort of the balance that I kind of weave throughout my work. And you try, but thank you all so very much for having me.
Well, thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful. It's been okay. Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.